Hi and welcome. And thank you, Rachel, for being here today. So, Rachel is my guest today, and we're going to talk about tarot cards. We met in Mexico, and it was an absolute pleasure to meet you, Rachel. And, back at the beach, she was telling a friends group, and me included, a lot about tarot cards. And it was very, very interesting. So, we'll talk about that. Rachel is an empowerment and a spiritual coach. And I'm just curious how all these things come together and to see where our talk will take us today. So, yeah, just to start off, Rachel, why or how did you get to tarot cards?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. So how I started was about 8 years ago. I would watch my stepmother do it. Like we used to go on family vacation and stuff like that. And she had been doing it for like, I don't know, like 20 years, like since she was a teenager. And so she would bring her cards and she did like a reading on me. And then like she did readings on people that would visit, like, because I could invite my friends to like family vacation and stuff like that. And I mean, of course, it was like interesting when she did it for me because I was like, oh, like this is so cool. But it was even cooler when I saw her do it to people that she didn't know, because to see how much it like resonated with them and she didn't even know them at all. So yeah, so when she started doing it for me, I just was like super interested. I'm like, okay, like I really want to learn about this. And yeah, so kind of based on that, I was like, I just bought a deck of cards and I started to get into it. Like she taught me like a few things. I just kind of learned a little bit from watching her, but then I just picked up my own deck and I started like reading books and just kind of playing around with the cards. And yeah, it just, again, like I mostly did it for myself. Like I wasn't really doing it because I wanted to be a tarot reader, like give readings to like anyone else. It
Mm-hmm.
was more of like, okay, like how can I use this as a tool for myself? And yeah, and I just started, playing around with the cards and using them. And I feel like it helped me a lot. Um, yeah, it helped me a lot.
Yeah. So, what did it help you with, or what did you get out of the cards, especially maybe when you started? What did you use them for, I guess?
Sure. So, so the cool thing about a tarot is like there are 78 cards and 22 of them are the major arcana and 56 are the minor arcana. So, especially with the major arcana, it's like 0 to 22, and these represent like the different archetypes. So, Carl Jung's like a psychologist, he talks about like the different universal archetypes. So when we look at that journey, it's called like the fool's journey or the hero's journey. We can see like all of the different stages of life that we all go through. Like, I mean, we all have
Mm.
different lives, we all have different challenges, but you can start to see like, okay, like these are the stages that people go through in their life. And so basically, whenever I would like feel like a little bit confused about something, or I feel like I needed clarity on something, and I'm really into meditation too and yoga, and I think that those are great tools. This is just like another tool that's slightly different, but if I couldn't like sit and meditate, I was like, okay, like I feel like I need something else. Like I need to do something else. I need to like speak about this, or like I'm a very visual learner. So tarot was really great for me visually. So I would take out the cards, ask my question, whatever it is, and I could really like tap into my subconscious mind and see what's going
Mm.
on beneath the surface. Kind of like in psychology, there's something called a Rorschach test. So people might have seen it like in the movies. It's like they show you a bunch of images, like abstract images, and then they ask you like, what do you see? And that's because whatever you see is a reflection of you. And so of course the cards do have specific meanings, but like through looking at the images, a lot of the time like I could see, okay, what is going on underneath the surface? Because our subconscious mind rules like most of our behavior. So when I could like put the cards out in front of me and I would like speak out loud, okay, like not thinking about me and my identity, but okay, what are the cards saying? Like, what is the story here? I'd be like, oh, like this is the story that I have, or like this is what's going on. And I just feel like I would get a lot of clarity there and start to see like it's just a story.
Interesting. So you're saying that the cards are a way to see how your subconscious mind works, or they're able to give you another perspective or see things from a higher perspective. Is that right?
Yeah, definitely. And just like a tool for self-awareness.
Mm. So, for example, if you would get, so a lot of people I think are sometimes scared to start tarot because they think, what if I get a very bad card? If bad card. So if they get the death card or the hangman or the tower or whatever it may be. Um, so what would you tell people that, maybe get one of those more scary cards? Is that how can you look at the reading so that you can still benefit from it?
Hmm. Yeah, I don't think there's anything like a bad card. Again, I think like
Mm-hmm.
as we're looking through the fool's journey or like the hero's journey, these are just the natural stages of life. Like we all go through ups, we all go through downs. In Hinduism and Buddhism, they talk a lot about impermanence and the fact that like things are always changing. So I don't think it's like bad if somebody gets like the tower card or whatever. Actually, like something like the tower card is one of the best cards because um it's like just to go back to like that specific card just for 1 second, because say that you want to create like a new reality for yourself and you're like, okay, like I want this new life, like I want this new home, right? Say your body is your home, your body is your temple. You can't build a new home on top of an existing home. You must break unless you put it in another spot, right? But we only have one body, we only have one vessel, one consciousness. So you need to break down your current home, your current reality in order to create space for that
Build
new
up.
home or that new reality. So like the tower is actually like one of my favorite cards. And like when people see it, they're like, oh no, and it feels really bad. But like there's no such thing as like a bad card. It's really just a part of the process and part of the journey. And once you start realizing that, you can be like, oh wait, this is actually like a really good sign. This is like part of the process. And then I know like, a lot of people are scared about tarot because they think it's like the devil or like
Oh yeah.
whatever, like all that stuff. And I'm not, because you can know the future with the cards too. I'm not saying that you can't see the future, um, but um, it's kind of like saying like I'm scared of like a coffee mug, or like I'm scared of like my couch. Like it's just, everything that is in your external reality is just kind of a reflection of your inner world. The same with money, right? Like money is just a tool. It's not evil, it's not bad, and it's what you do with it, right? There are people that have used tarot in the past to for bad things, like planting negative seeds in people's minds. So that might be why people are scared, but it's not the cards themselves. It's what you choose and how you choose to use them. It's just a tool.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And often I feel like if the cards are able to tell you some sort of reality, for you not to be aware of that is scarier
Mm-hmm.
than, so basically closing your eyes of something that maybe isn't quite right in your life that needs to be changed is actually scarier and more harmful than just taking the necessary steps to actually see the reality as it is and be like, oh, something's crumbling in my life. For example, with the tower card, maybe there's parts that need to be changed drastically in my life, like maybe a relationship or whatever, a job situation, whatever it is. And that's something that inside of you. So do you think that cards can help us to tap into our intuition more, and it's really about how you read the cards as well? If it is more, because that's what I think. Even before you were saying something about you would see the cards, and maybe I didn't get it right, but you would be aware of, this is just a story that I tell myself. So this is not even what's really there, but that's the story I tell myself. For example, I don't know, I'm still very new with the cards, but there are some cards with, for example, the swords. I don't know which one it is, where the woman has the blindfold and all the swords around her. Or then there's the sword where the guy is on the floor and he has all the swords in his back, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you could maybe see it as a way to say, well, this is the story I'm telling myself, but it may not necessarily be true. Do you think
Yeah.
that as well? Or yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I do think so when it comes to like reading the cards, there is a level of our own intuition and our own interpretation, but I do also believe that everything is connected and there's no coincidences. So if you get a certain card, like it does mean something, right? Like there are like cards that do have specific meanings. And I feel like if you get those cards, like it does mean something. We can't just like make something up about it. You know, there's only so much
Good,
we
yeah.
could. Yeah, like I remember I realized this too. So the first time I saw my stepmom doing the reading, like she did it to me and I was very into it. She did it to my sister. My sister was very into it. And then she did it to my brother. And my brother was like very logical. And he was like, no, this this isn't gonna work. And he's a very mathematical person. And you know, there's 78 cards, and I believe she pulled 10 cards for him. And she pulled those 10 cards, and he was again very hesitant to believing in anything. And she was like, okay, let's see what cards you get if I keep mixing them and I keep pulling them. So I think she pulled like cards for him like 4 different times. And out of the 4 different times, almost every time, all like 10 of the cards were exactly the same. Or if they weren't the same, they were like a similar type of card.
That's so cool.
So, and then my brother was just like, you know, because according to logic and statistics, like that's not possible. So I do think there is like, you know, the reason that the cards fall the way that they fall is for a reason. And they do have specific meanings. But yeah, we can like read the cards and kind of see like, this is the story that is going on in my life right now. This is the reality. Like, how can I use this to improve myself, become a better person, or whatever the situation is.
So where can people learn about the meanings of the cards? Because especially if you start, then maybe you're not aware of the different symbols in it. Would you suggest that people just use their own intuition? I'm guessing you would suggest that you learn a little bit about the meaning of the cards. Or do you think people can just like dive right into it and use their own imagination and intuition?
I think it's a mix of both. Like, I think in the end, like your intuition is the most important thing. But when it comes to reading like the original Rider-Waite deck, the cards do have like general meaning, right? So it doesn't always have the same meaning depending on like how it mixes with other cards and like who you're reading it for. But I do suggest like, you know, if you want to get into it and like know the meanings, either like start off with like a book or even like online, but just focus on like one card per day. Cause like that's what I would do. So there's 22 major arcana. And so that's easier to work with, right? Like 22 cards, because if you can use your intuition and throw all the cards down, but if you don't know anything about the cards, you're going to be more likely to actually go into your logical mind because you're going to be like, what is this and what is that? But if you study the cards individually, it's kind of like, I like to think of it of like a dance, like when you're learning a choreography. When you're learning a choreography, first you have to kind of learn the steps, and you're not really thinking about like, you're not really putting your full energy into it because you're still in your head about getting the step right. But once you practice like the steps and you know each of the steps individually, then your body knows what to do. And that's when you can be like, oh, I'm going to add my facial expressions. I'm going to add my personality. And like, that's when you can start adding in more of your intuition. So yeah, I would suggest just like starting with 0 to 22. And then what I would do is I'd pick like one card per day. And before looking at any meaning, practice your intuition and ask yourself, like, what are like 3 words that come to my mind when I see this card? What do I feel when I see these cards? Like, look at the images, because you might be surprised to know that you actually know a lot more than you think. And then, you know, go into like reading about the meaning. I do think it is important about reading the meaning too, because this is a lot of ancient symbols and they do have a lot of meaning too.
Oh, that's awesome. So when you said to pick a card each day, so you would just use the major arcana to pick from them? Or did you mean just like generally?
To start, like, yeah, because eventually you want to learn the minor arcana too. So like to start, like, so the major arcana is again more of like the journey that we all go through. and it represents like the archetypes and the people. So this is like the major like phases that we go through in our life. So you can start with that. Once you have like the major, you don't have to do major first. I just say because it's less cards, right? Like it's 22 versus 56.
Yes.
Then once you have that with the minor, I mean, you can do it however you want to, but so with the minor cards, there's 4 different suits. I don't know if it's helpful. I have my cards. I don't know if it's helpful to like show, but
yeah, maybe it is helpful. Yeah.
Okay. But if I can find some. I'm going to take out 4 cards. One more. Okay. So with the minor arcana, there is 4 different suits. So you have like swords, like this is this card that you were talking about, right, Maria?
Yeah.
This is a sword, swords. You have pentacles, which look like little coins. You have cups, and then you have wands. So like with the, and each of them represent different elements. So the swords represent the air, which represents your mind and your thoughts. And the pentacles represent more of earth energy. So it has to do with material world, money, anything in the material world. Wands is fire. So it has to do with action and also relationships with other people. And then the cups has to do with water, which is emotions. And so there's 10 of each of these cards from 1 to 10. So if you're working with the minor arcana, I would just like know those, just knowing like that, what I just told you, like, okay, what does cups mean? What is the wand mean? What does swords mean? What does pentacles mean? Like, even if you didn't know what the specific number card was, you would know what the theme is, right?
Yeah.
So I would say with the minor cards, like start off with like, okay, I'm only gonna study like, there's 10 cup cards. I'm going to study 10 cup cards. I know that cups are about emotions, and I know that cups is about water. Now I'm going to study 1 to 10, those 10 cards. And yeah, that's basically how I went about it. I mean, you can do it however you want to, but that was like making it more manageable for me, because I think a lot of people, not just with tarot, but like with everything, like I want to learn everything at once, and it's kind of good to just like break it down by section and study it that way. And then, you know, you'll start to see like, if you do like a reading for somebody, like even if you know nothing about tarot, but you know the 4 elements, you'll notice, okay, like this person got 10 cards and 7 of those 10 cards are pentacle cards. So there's obviously a theme here about money and material, something in the material world, like more like home and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's very good. Is there also a theme with the numbers? So they're all numbered, and numerology, does that come into play as well, would you say?
Yeah, so I would say after like studying, like as you're studying 1 to 10, studying the numerology too. The different numbers mean different things. So, you know, like 10 is really like that like completion number. And, you know, the 0, with like 0 being like the Fool, is like infinity, and it's like when you're starting. And like the number 4 is more about like stability, right? Like once you've reached like a 4 in the journey, like 4, what is it called on like a table? 4 legs. 4 legs on a table. It's about stability and like, you know, so
a house with the 4 walls.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it has a lot to do with numerology too. And I think that's something to look out for in the reading too, is like, are there any connections? Like, are there a lot of a certain type of suit that's coming up, or is there a number that keeps repeating? And like, are there a lot of 2s, or are there a lot, like say there's a 2 and then there's like, I don't know, no, not a 2. Let me think of a different number. Say there's like, I'm trying to think of like 2 numbers that add up. So like a third number, say there's like a 5. I don't know, this isn't an actual example because this number isn't in the tarot, but I'm just like making up a numerology thing. Say there's like a 5, and then you got like the 32. 32 doesn't exist in the tarot, but say that 3 and 2 equals 5. And you're like, okay, there's a 5 energy there, there's a 5 energy here. So you just kind of look for like patterns in the reading.
Yeah, that's cool. So, but now you're talking more about longer spreads. So it would not just be one card, but obviously it would be maybe 8 cards, 10 cards. What kind of spreads do you use for the most part?
Yeah. I use mostly, I mean, I do different things and there's no like right or wrong way. Again, like once you kind of know the meanings of the cards and you study them, you can start doing whatever the heck you want to with the spreads. But I do mostly the Celtic cross, which is like the very most traditional way, which is like there's a middle card. The middle card is usually like your present situation. Then there's a card on top of that, which is a challenge. The card to the left is the past. The card to the right is the future. The card above is what is guiding you. What is the card below is kind of what's underneath the surface you're not aware of. And then on the side, sometimes I change it up, but there's like 4 cards on the side, and I might be like, depending on what the person is interested in, I'm like, this card is for relationships, this is for your home and family, this is for and then usually the card at the top is like your advice, like your highest advice. And you can always like pull another card for clarity. But I would say for beginners, like this is going to be so freaking overwhelming. Like there's too much going on. So what I would do is like I start off with one card pull or 3 cards. Just do present, past, and future, and work with 3 cards, like maximum. And then once you feel like you're getting a hang of that, then you can add in the cross, or you can add in like any other type of spread, like whatever you want to make that placement mean, the universe is going to give you the answer to. So if you're like, I want this placement to mean like about home and this placement to mean about career, then the universe is like, okay, so you get to kind of like say the rules in that way, right? Like I think of it as like putting a seed in the soil. You can kind of put whatever seed you want to, like the ground doesn't really care what seed you put in. Like you can kind of pick whatever spread you want to, as long as you're consistent with what you're doing.
Yeah, as long as you have a clear intention of this is what it is about, I guess. Which brings me to the next question that I would have is, how do we use them best in the sense of like, do we have to be in the right mindset? Do we have to have the space prepared so that we are actually honoring the cards and not just overusing them, or, not using the, I lost my train of thought here, but yeah, you know what I mean. So how do we prepare for the reading?
Yeah, I mean, it's totally up to you. I mean, I usually like to make sure I'm like in a quiet space where I'm not going to be like distracted by my phone or like people, similar to like when I'm doing meditation, maybe I'll put incense or whatever it is that kind of gets you into like a more neutral space. And then, yeah, I mean, everybody's different, but for me, I find it really beneficial to like speak out loud. Like I did this before I even gave readings to other people, because even if you're giving a reading for yourself, like as you speak it out loud, like almost like when you're in therapy, like you're speaking through your train of thought, you're speaking through things. I found that to be powerful. And yeah, I feel like, obviously be aware if you're trying to like do it all the time and you keep like, don't ask the cards the same question 10 times. Like, don't be like, oh my God, this is going to happen. And then you get the answer and you're like, wait, let me ask it again. Like, then you're not honoring like what the answer is, and you're not going to get what you're looking for, because you're coming from the energy of like desperation. You really have to go into it with like a trust of like, okay, like whatever it is I need to see and whatever it is I need to hear is like exactly what is meant to be. And that's for yourself, for readings that you give to other people. Yeah, like I've never felt that way about like the tarot, like, oh my God, like I need to like ask my cards like like all the time, but I know like maybe some people are like that, like they're really desperate. And you can ask specific questions about specific situations, but I also recommend to kind of ask for more clarity and more perspective over anything else, instead of like,
so
like how can I do this rather than will this happen, right? Like you can get those answers, because I have seen it. Like I've done readings for people and they're like, wow, like what you said happened, or like when I had my stepmom do it for me, she like predicted things, right? But it's not just about that. Like it's not about like just predicting your future, because you create your future, right? So it's really about like, okay, like what is it that I need to hear right now? Like how can I grow? Like how can I change my perspective on this?
Yeah, I understand. So it's, you can never really get a yes no answer. For example, it's not like the cards maybe are not able to or shouldn't be the ones making a decision for you, but rather guide you towards more clarity or a higher perspective. Yeah, that's cool.
I mean, you can get a clear yes no.
You can? Okay,
You
cool. That's
can, yeah,
awesome.
you can get a clear yes no, but only you'll know from your intuition by looking at the cards. Like, oh, that's a yes, that's a no.
I
Right.
get it. Do you think it changes to like when you, I know for me, for example, with teaching yoga, when I started to teach yoga, I learned even more about yoga. So I wonder if it's similar with you. Once you start doing readings for others, it opens up a new sphere or a new dimension, even, where you're like, wow, this is so more deep now because I get to learn even more. Is it similar for you to some degrees?
Yeah, definitely.
So where do you do readings, or if people who are listening to this would want to do a reading with you, where would they be able to do that?
Yeah. So I'm in Miami. I prefer doing in-person readings just because I'm honestly like, I can still do it remotely, and I'm doing it remotely too, but I do like to have the person put their hands on the cards and like put their energy in the cards. And there is a way to do that remotely, but I mostly do it in person. So yeah, I can book a reading online here in Miami. I do like different events. Like this Sunday, I'll be like at a market. And
Cool. Oh, that's awesome. I wish I was in Miami then.
yeah, it's gonna be a nice little market. And
That's awesome. Cool. Yeah, and something else, like, what do you think? Is there a difference between oracle cards to tarot cards, or do you use both of them? Do you choose between what kind of cards you want to use for what situation? How does that work for you?
yeah, so I have oracle cards too, and I think that they're great. I think that they're a little bit better for like one question. Like I have one question, let me like pull an oracle card. Personally, I like the original tarot deck better, because I do think that there is like, again, like this ancient symbols, like there's a lot of ancient symbolism there, secret symbolism, like even major arcana, minor arcana. Arcana means mysteries. There's a lot of mystery and like hidden symbolism in the original deck. And like, yeah, like I use oracle cards more like a one question pull, or like on top of a reading. I know like nowadays it's really popular and everyone's like angel cards and these cards and those cards. And I think that they're great. But for my personal experience, I feel like in terms of like getting really specific details on things, I feel like the original deck is better at that, because it has like there's a reason that these images were chosen for these, like these ancient symbols. And I will share this with you. I know I shared it with you before, but like, yeah, like this is one of my favorite cards, which is the Wheel of Fortune. And it's one of the only cards in the deck that says the word tarot on it. So it's in a wheel, like tarot, right? But if you like rotate the wheel, as you rotate it, you'll like see different words. So it says rota, which is like the wheel or to turn. Then it says, I wrote it out here because sometimes I forget the words myself. It says it right here though. Rota means the wheel or to turn. And then tarot, which, this is the tarot. Then it says orat, which means speaks. And then Torah. So the Torah means law. In Judaism, Torah is the law, or the lawgiver. So tarot is really closely associated with the Kabbalah as well. And then the last one is Ator, which is the Egyptian goddess of love. So if you put it all together, it means the wheel of tarot speaks the law of love.
Oh my
So
God, I
like,
love that. Yeah,
yeah,
that's beautiful. That is
yeah.
awesome. Yeah, and to think that
So
these
that's
cards
why I
are
really love the
charged,
original deck.
yeah, with this old ancient history and all these people having used them, like that must be somehow stored in the energy of this deck, right?
Hmm. Yeah, you'll
Yeah,
see
that's awesome.
Hebrew letters, you'll see crosses, you'll see Egyptian symbols. Um, there's got to be some wisdom from these ancient practices, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's very interesting what you said about Jung with the archetypes where we can find ourselves in. So that is also something. Do you have any books that you would recommend for people to get if they want to learn about the individual cards? Or is there an online website that you recommend, or only if you have it in the top of the on the top of the mind head?
If you go online, I think that Biddy, I think it's called like Biddy Tarot or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of one of the main ones, and I think it's pretty good. Like if you don't want to get a book, there's that. One of my favorite books for like if you really want to get more deep into like the spiritual stuff, I actually have it here, is called
Oh, cool.
The Wisdom of the Tarot by Elizabeth. I don't know how to pronounce her name. Hype. It's not
Uh-huh.
famous. Like she's not famous. Like it's not a famous book, but like when you read it, you're like, okay, wow, like she knows a lot about like the ancient this one's only about the major arcana too. So if you wanted to start with the major arcana, I recommend that book. I
Cool.
also have another book. It just depends if how you want to learn it. I think I don't remember what it's called, like the Kabbalistic Tarot, which is
Mm-hmm.
more related to the Kabbalah, which is the Jewish book of mysticism. If you wanted to, but again, if you're not too interested in that, it doesn't make sense. But it's more about how the tarot is tied to the Kabbalah, the numerology, the tree of life, how that ties into the tarot.
That's super beautiful.
And then
Yeah,
other
you
books
can
I can't, on
definitely.
the top of my head, I can't remember.
Yeah. Yeah, you can definitely see that you're really connected to the cards. And I do believe I was just thinking about the story about your brother, right, who was very skeptical about the cards, and then your stepmom being able to pull the same cards. And I wonder if it's, not just the card, but it's also the one that gives the reading that's very much in tune with the cards. And also what sort of like, is it almost like channeling where you're aware that, okay, it's your hands pulling out these cards, but there's something that is working towards you to be able to get these insights, get exactly the right card. I wonder if this is also something that plays into it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I definitely feel like when I'm reading the cards and channeling, like I'm not really like thinking, right? Like maybe in the
Mm,
beginning, like again, when I was learning the cards, I was like thinking more, but then like as you learn more, like really you start to channel because you start to have like more trust that whatever is meant to like come through you is coming through you. So yeah, I definitely think the person who reads it is important and is a channel as well.
it's like the dance that you described, right? Where at the end, at first, maybe you have to think about every step and you have to do it rationally and consciously. And then towards the end, you can get your own flavor in, but the stepping happens by itself almost.
What was the last thing you said?
Like the stepping happens by itself, or like the steps itself. You don't have to think about, okay, the right foot goes in the front and the left goes back. It just happens, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I do. Yeah, so I think everybody can read the cards. I do think, yeah, maybe it might be easier for some people, but I think we all have the ability to do it. And I think um like right now, I don't like have like like I work with people one-on-one. It's more coaching and tarot readings. I haven't really done like a one-on-one like mentorship of like I'll help you learn how to do tarot. But if that's something people are interested in, I think that's a great idea too, because um part of like I'm not like religiously Jewish. I'm much more into Hinduism, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
But the Torah, which is the book of Judaism, along with the Kabbalah, which is mysticism. A lot of it was said to be spoken word. So like it was only taught through like the spoken word and like speaking. So like a lot of this stuff, like I'm sharing now, I'm sharing it freely because I'm not trying to hide anything. I want everybody to know, but like a lot of the stuff you're not necessarily going to find in books. And like I think Biddy Tarot is great for like general stuff, but I think, you know, obviously working with someone who has done it before, like speaking with them, you might like have some insights about like more of the channeling and all that stuff.
Absolutely. I think that would be a brilliant course or one-on-one program for people, because I do think it's a very powerful tool to use if you know how to work with them. And, you know, even if you see it from a yoga perspective, it is about self-inquiry, getting to know yourself better, being able to see in the higher picture. And the tarot cards can just be another tool for you to do that, especially with the archetypes and all that stuff that you explained before. So yeah, I think it would be a beautiful idea to do that.
Yeah, it's in my mind. It's in the work. I'm thinking through if I'm gonna offer
yeah. I
something
think it
like
is coming
that.
through. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because
awesome.
at the end of the day, like, and I even when I give readings to people, I try to explain things to them so that they feel empowered. You know, I don't want people to come to me and be like, you're my guru or you're my reader, like you know, like really empower you to know that you can find the answers too. And like a mirror, like again, like back to like a mirror, like when you look in the mirror, if you're conscious, you're like, that's me.
Yeah.
You don't see it as like, you're like, oh, that's just a reflection of me, right? So that's why like so powerful, like reading the cards, because you, again, like more about like the self-inquiry and tapping into yourself.
Yeah. And with everything, we can use, whether it's tarot cards or astrology, we can use these knowledges and these wisdoms as a way to empower ourselves and get to know ourselves. And that is much more helpful than wanting someone else to make decision for us, or you know, putting ourselves in a victim sort of situation where we're like, all right, the stars are doing this, that's why I can't do this or that, and that's why I'm feeling miserable right now. But yeah, that's awesome. And that brings us maybe to the last thing to talk about, which is empowerment, which is also something that you coach people in, and spirituality, which all ties together. If you maybe would want to share just a little bit on how you're, or like for what kind of people this would be for, and where people can find you, what you're focusing on in your programs.
Who this would be for, like for which part, like to start learning about tarot or more about working with me?
No, like your empowerment and your coaching work that you're doing, you know, because I feel like it really comes in very nicely together. You're using tarot cards as a way of self-inquiry and empowerment, and the same thing is also tied in your work that you're doing right now with coaching people. Same.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so one of the reasons I started going into coaching too was like for that same exact thing. Like, you know, I think that tarot is like an amazing tool, but I think it's only one of many tools, and I wanted something that was a little bit longer, to like not just like a one-off session, which I still love doing, but like kind of helping people to like do the work so that they can continue to like empower themselves, like, right, like even if they're not working with me or not working with a tarot reader. So right now I have a one-on-one program, and it's 3 months. And during those 3 months, I focus on 3 different like topics, which is meditation, mindset, and manifestation. And tarot is like part of it. It really just depends on like the specific person, right? So in the first month of meditation, it's all about like awareness, self-awareness, right? Because I think a lot of people like want all of these like external things, like that's the last step, right? Like that's like the manifestation, like, oh yeah, I just want to like manifest things and whatever, but we can't get where we want to go if we don't know where we are, right? So I think that the most important thing, which is why I love you so much, and I love yoga so much, is like meditation, right? Becoming aware. This is the most important thing, because if we don't become aware of ourselves and our inner world, it doesn't really matter what happens externally, because it's all about like the inner world. So in the first month, we worked through meditation. Again, it depends on the specific person. Sometimes I'll use tarot. I help you to use tarot too, if that's something that you're interested in. Sometimes I use hypnosis, like tapping, like different kind of like energy work and breath work and like different stuff like that. So you can start to just be like, okay, like I like to call it like the deprogramming phase. Like I'm clearing, clearing all these like blockages, right? And I'm just becoming aware with like non-judgment, not trying to like change things, but just awareness. And then in the second month, we go more into mindset. So that's like, okay, like now that we've kind of like cleared a little bit and become more aware of where we are, what is like the new story that we want to tell ourselves? What's like the new program? And then in the third month, now that we've kind of worked through more of like the inner world, okay, now that you've like mastered your inner world, okay, now what is it that you want to create in the outer world? Because that's, again, like the last step. So that's what I have right now. I'm also working on a group program, which I'm not going to announce yet because it's still like in the works. But I also might be doing a tarot course. Who knows? I'm thinking about it, because a lot of people want to learn about it and stuff like that. And
you're on fire. Awesome. I love it. Yeah. That sounds beautiful.
And of course, 3 months is like what I do. I mean, for some people it takes longer, because like,
we're all different.
Everyone is different. I mean, I've been meditating and whatever for like 10 years. So I'm not telling you that like in 3 months you're going to be like a perfect person. I'm not perfect,
Yeah.
But that's the program.
That's awesome. Yeah. It kind of ties in with the tower that we were talking about before a card, right? But first you need to make space for the new in your program. So I love that you're honoring that process as well. So that is something that I just noticed. And yeah, that's awesome. Cool. Is there anything you would like to add that you feel like we didn't talk about?
I don't know, let me think. Did I write something down I want to talk about? I don't think so. I think it was like most of what I had to share.
Yeah, I think it's a good time. We spoke for about an hour. So thank you so much for doing this. I think it's super interesting. And yeah, for everyone who's watching, reach out to Rachel and follow her on Instagram as well. You maybe tell everyone your Instagram.
Oh yeah, I didn't say that.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Like that might help. Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at the Bhakti Babe. That's the BHAKTI Babe. And yeah, so essentially Bhakti is a path of yoga. It's a path of like love and devotion. And I'm contemplating changing my name on Instagram, because even though I love Bhakti yoga, I don't teach, like, I mean, I do teach it. Like, I feel like I do teach those in my teachings, but my page isn't just about Bhakti yoga. But in case anyone's wondering, like, what the hell is Bhakti? Like, that is what it is. It's the path of like love and devotion. So it's BHAKTI, the Bhakti Babe.
Cool. Awesome. And that's where people can reach out if they want to work with you one-on-one or are interested in any group sessions. Yeah. Awesome. All right. Thank you so much, Rachel, for coming and having this talk with me. And
thank you.